Yeah, but that's not really the issue. The issue is people, you know, a lot of these young girls that are used in adverts and who are totally just fabricated with some sort of identity kit. I mean, all those are beautiful girls. They probably don't need airbrushed anyway.
But people should know, I think, when pictures
people
have
should
been
definitely know, yes, especially with adverts. One would have thought. John Gaunt, we can now tell you officially, has not been airbrushed today. This is him in natural beauty.
Sorry for all those of you who are asking. Yeah,
it would be a big job, wouldn't it? Let's face it. Yeah. I'm a father of 2 girls, though, and you see all this completely all the time, this body fascism that's around, and TV's terrible for it. Let's be honest about it. You've got to have certain looks if you're a woman to get on telly, and then you've got certain newspapers who like that woman who was doing the fitness in the park. I mean, while she was doing it in the park, I don't know what, and then they attack her for being fat. Well, she's just had a baby, and these are all negative images, especially for our girls. And I seriously do believe it needs looking into, and it's more than just having a note about airbrushing. And you're dead right. Miley in class is absolutely beautiful, isn't she? And you know, and she doesn't actually need the airbrushing. But it's all those other pictures and all those other images and all those negative things that are completely reinforced by the newspapers, especially the newspapers, every day of the week. Yeah. That's what's affecting young kids, in my opinion.
The banks, you just heard the man from the Federation of Small Businesses and Lloyd's declaring these 1.6 billion profits half yearly. It seems that the government bails them out and they say, right, we'll have your money, but you know what, we'll do what we want. Yeah. If you went to the bank to get a loan, there would be conditions. But, you know, what's going on here?
Absolutely right. I mean, Stephen's a good man, but he's wrong. He's blaming the banks. And this is going to sound unpopular, so hear me out. It isn't the bank's fault, this. It's the government's, the world's fault. They should have intervened much, much earlier, at least a year earlier, the moment that subprime crisis started to happen. What we've got is, you know, they dithered and they sort of said, oh, shall we let a few banks go bust? And Lehman Brothers, of course, did. Northern Rock, they decided in the end to save. Now David Cameron's saying our booming banks have to lend again. Well, Mr Cameron, if you want them to lend again, that should have been in the conditions that Brown laid down, as you were just alluding to, Eamon. If I lent you some money, I'd say to you, I want it back on such and such a date, you're going to pay this and you're going to do this with it. And you'd have to do that. We've just given them this money. All they've done is repaired their bank, their balance sheets, which, of course, the government wants them to do anyway, because the government now will be rubbing their hands together that Lloyds are making a profit because they can now flog the shares. Meanwhile, small businesses are going bust. I've got loads of mates who run small businesses. It's almost impossible to get money. Same with mortgages. 0.5% is the base rate. You try and get something for less than 5.9 at the moment. You can't. But the only way you're going to change it, David Cameron, isn't say they have to lend again. You're going to have to force it through legislation.
Okay.
Isn't it weird, though, that, you know, they were saying, oh, the bad lending caused all this crisis, and there was an outcry about the bad lending. And when the banks clamped down on it and didn't do that anymore, now there's an outcry saying, actually, you should be lending again. They've cut down on that.
Well, that's why he needs government help, because the government help was to bail them out of that situation. But the government should have said, once we got to that, there's going to be more of a balance between you restoring your balance sheet and you lending money. If you don't lend the money to the small companies, you will not get economic growth. And that's what's going to happen. That's why we've got these savage cuts. The governments didn't intervene enough. Not Cameron, it's not his fault.
Let's talk about council housing now. It's another story in the Times, and we're getting a reaction to what you said earlier about that. But basically, what does the government want to do here? Well,
basically, what they want to do is they're saying that you're not going to have a council house for life. They're going to have sort of tenancy agreements. After 5 years, if you suddenly got yourself a job or a better job, earning more money, they could boot you out of your house. To me, this is almost fascist. This is just completely and utterly wrong. There's 4 million social houses in this country, 2 million councils, according to the Times, 1.9 million in the private sector, but there's 5 million people wanting housing. Now, this would all be OK if David Cameron hadn't said this last week that he wants to open Turkey into the European Union.
Your point being?
My point being, there'll be loads more people coming in, and by the very nature that they're new arrivals, they'll probably want social housing.
So, quite simply, we haven't got enough social housing in the country, and the people who are in there and established and who see that as home, and why shouldn't they see that as home?
Can get booted out.
Can get booted out, not for existing people in the country, but people from outside.
Well, for a combination of that, yeah, a combination of that. And I just feel it's wrong. I think if you want to build strong communities, you shouldn't treat people who live in council houses as second-class citizens, and this is what Cameron is doing here. And Mrs Thatcher was right to let us buy our council houses, but the money should have been reinvested. We should have more social housing. And I just want to repeat, there's no stigma of living in a council house.
Yeah, we talked about that before.
Too many snobs.
Very, very sad story here. Eddie Yates, who was a character in Coronation Street, is the actor Geoffrey Hughes. He's in a bad way.
He's in a very bad way. He's got cancer. They're fearing the worst for him as well. I mean, he's a legend, isn't he? We grew up with him, didn't we, Eamon?
It'd be nice to see a picture from which we've cut out of the headline there. But
He was, of course, the lodger, wasn't he, for Hilda?
Hilda and Stan.
Hilda and Stan. And then he ended up in all those other programmes with Miss Bouquet and all the rest of it. He's a great actor, a great British telly character actor, and we wish him and his family all the best.
Yeah. Now, we've got Baroness
Wasi,
Wasi, and she's saying we mustn't have a burqa ban.
Yeah, she's sort of leading Muslim politician, of course. She doesn't want a burqa ban. I don't agree with her, but I welcome the fact that she's getting involved in the argument. We need to have a proper discussion about this, even a referendum, and let the British people decide on whether or not we want people to dress this way. You know my views on it, know her views. Let's have a proper grown-up discussion.
You've got a situation here with the Pakistan floods. An illustration, a cartoon. What's it saying?
It's a cartoon in the Times, and often these things illustrate it better, don't they? It's all the floods, people drowning, one guy pulling somebody out of the water. Any word from President Zardari, and he's got the other chap's got a postcard. Weather nice, wish you were here. Because, of course, he's come over to London to see David Cameron. There's this massive diplomatic spat going on about whether Pakistan are involved in promoting terrorism. You've got all the Pakistani people outside the hotel last night complaining and moaning about him not being back there. Clearly, at the moment, he should be back in his own country dealing with the problem. But it's similar, isn't it, to when Bush didn't go down to Katrina quickly enough, and when, indeed, Barack Obama got the criticism for not going to the Gulf Coast quickly enough after the BP oil spill. Yeah.
Any reaction, Charlotte, come in from the last time John was on?
Well, yeah, actually, we did have quite a few on various different subjects. I've got one here on airbrushing, actually, and one photographer saying about I airbrush most of my photos slightly. He says it's been happening for years, that a lot of people are doing it. Another guy, Matthew, he says airbrush pictures are so obvious it's not needed, that he reckons that you can spot. And Wayne Coulter makes the point, I'd rather see airbrushing than plastic surgery, which I guess perhaps is the better alternative, is it? Instead of people thinking that they've got to change their looks.
Why can't people just be happy with their looks? Why can't we just have a media that reflects how the British society looks? And then we wouldn't have this situation, would we? That's what's wrong. That's what's wrong. But never mind, we can call all fat people now fat instead of obese, and so that's all right. So all the people with the perfect bodies can carry on being happy and smug with any of us who are slightly overweight. It's true, though, isn't it? What I'm saying is absolutely true. And then they wonder why we've got bulimia and anorexia amongst our teenage girls. Then they worry about it.
John, he's saying it as it is. Your views, news@sky.com. Let us know. At Eamon Holmes at Sky. Charlotte the tweets. Very nice to see you again next week, Mr. John Gott. Top stories are these. Jolly boys to my jolly girls here in the studio. Wonder it won't be too jolly at Parkhead tonight, will it?
Well, it will be if they score 4 goals.
Yes, this is Celtic against the Portuguese side, SK Braga, which apparently it's not on the telly.
No.
No.
Not on the telly.
Well, it will be in some dodgy pub somewhere. We can all go and see.
Yeah, which I'm sure you'll be able to seek out. Right, it may only be the 4th of August, but Celtic are facing elimination from the Champions League. They trail.
OK. Apparently the weather makes a big difference to times like that, Lucy.
Really?
Air pressure, wind, all sorts of things.
All sorts. So much more going on than just the drenching that we're getting this morning.
Yeah, is it raining out there?
Yeah, it's raining like mad across southern parts of Yorkshire, the Pennines, heavy, possibly thundery bursts of rain. Really awful out there, driving rain. Really poor visibility, so not feeling much like summer. For the rest of us, I've got the details now.
Thanks, Lucy. Just rounding off this hour with what you're saying about the stories in the news, and cloned meat is a big one, and indeed cloned animals. And you must have a cloned dog, Charlotte, because it's mad.
I wish I did have a cloned dog, actually. It'd be lovely to have lots of versions of her. But Nikki Whiteman asked the question, have we already eaten meat from a cloned cat and we might not know it? And another quick one on airbrushing, actually. Jamie Baring gets annoyed by the same thing as me. That mascara advert where they say styled with lash inserts, that should be banned, he says.
Yes, and hair extensions and all sorts of things for shampoo adverts. But there we go. Those are the talking points this morning. We will take a break there. We are back and we're talking banks right after this as well. Let's get a rundown of what else is happening around the world. Charlotte with those details.
Thanks, Eamon. It's been confirmed that meat from the offspring of a cloned cow has been sold and eaten in Britain. The Food Standards Agency says it happened last year, but it's also said that it intervened only last week to stop the same thing happening again. It's illegal for the meat or milk of a cloned animal to enter the human food chain in the UK without approval. Amy Lewis has more.
When you're shopping, it is perhaps